Like, look at my t-shirt. Mind your own uterus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't be afraid to say.
Mind your own uterus?
Sure. I got some compliments on that today too, because that's kind of the thing. In some cases, you naturally have a voice because of your experiences. But just because you have a voice doesn't mean you have to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of people who want to come out and who want to help. Remember, I said that my wife gives more to this movement than a lot of people know, and you never hear her speak on anything. You never see her in the forefront. There's a lot of people whose voices are needed out here when they come out, but they're needed in different spaces. They don't need to be heard in front of a camera. Some people need to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Facts.
Mind your own uterus.
No, it's definitely taken on a life of its own right now.
Right. So people need to understand that, but they need to learn, they need to find their way. One of the biggest things that concerns me sometimes in this movement is exactly that. When they don't like what I say, when they don't like what a Kitch says, when they don't like, you know, what a Nick says, you know, things like that, they have a tendency to find somebody. You know how the jokes are on YouTube about every time there's a fire in a trailer park, you always get the worst individual to talk to the cameras.
Oh, yeah.
He's always got the stained up wife beater, and he had to run out without half of his teeth.
Yeah.
You know, and all those things. He's the guy that they get to speak. People have to understand that in this movement, there are people out there for the wrong reasons that are looking for that stained up wife beater to get in front of the camera. And some people are so hungry to be heard that they'll go out there and they'll speak on our behalf, and they shouldn't. I don't speak on anybody's behalf but my own, my agency, and the people that I love. And I stand on what I say. If there's ever an issue, if I said it wrong, I will acknowledge the fact that I said it wrong. But if I didn't, then deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, deal with it. Because I own my stuff. Because I've worked too hard to get to where I am, to act like I'm somebody else.
I put too much time in for this shit.
And too much effort. I
Yeah.
mean, this is, if you think it's easy to get like this, then you in the wrong. It wasn't. This was hard. This was soul searching. People have a tendency to look at me right now and be like, you know, yeah, okay, well, they don't know where I came from. You know, they have a tendency, like when I say I went to prison for bank robbery, they look at me in my current state and they'd be like, oh, he was one of them gentlemen bank robbers. They came in and said, could you please pass the cash across the... No, I came in with a shotgun, told everybody to get on the floor in a minute. I've robbed a gas station with a hammer. People ask me, how do you rob a gas station with a hammer? You have to mean it, and the first thing you do is you bust the counter. You know? So when people see me in this state, they forget how far I had to come to get here. And so I take pride in who I am. Not an unhealthy pride, but I take pride in the work that I've done and the fact that I'm still willing to put in the work and haven't arrived yet. There's always going to be a finish line somewhere further, but I'm just proud that I'm still in the race because I don't have to. I could be going making a better living, not especially now that I've done this. I could have used this as a springboard for something else. There's been other jobs that have come up that paid more and had less responsibility. And I've considered them, but I don't consider them for very long because this is where my passion lies. And not just, somebody told me this while I was in prison, that same volunteer, no, a different volunteer. He said something about, you know, we need you out here. And I said, yeah, I know, you need people like me. And he stopped me dead in my tracks. He said, I didn't say we need people like you. I said, we need you. And I understand that now because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I'm needed in this space and I'm needed in this organization. So some of that requires a little bit of sacrifice on my part too. If you don't know, now you know. Adam Grant, Executive Director of A Brighter Way, released from the Michigan Department of Corrections after serving 27 years, approximately 5 years ago, January 8th of 2020. It's been an interesting ride if everybody remembers what happened in March of 2020. My re-entry was an interesting one, but it was very much mine. It's very much what brought me to this point today, and prepared me to change the game in re-entry as far as I'm concerned.
How did, what was that game that you're talking about?
Well, when I came home 5 years ago, it was kind of interesting. There were some things that were starting to happen. You know, I think about Nation Outside was still fairly young. I think about Fresh Coast Alliance. I think about some of the big players in the game right now who are still kind of getting their feet wet. And then the world shut down, and I was in contact with a lot of them. So we were doing podcasts and still, kind of, making people aware. But the game was still very much dominated by some of the old players. And you get people like Nate who started to look at it a little bit differently and started to, develop some of the relationships that he did. And, Kitch coming home, and Kitch got a whole different, spin and way of looking at this. And I kind of came home, and I've been thinking about this for like 15, 20 years.
Right.
And worked in the law library, so I'd been researching it. So how do I legally do this? How do I do that? And I just kind of put that to work. I just kept showing up. That was my philosophy when I came home. Just show up. One of the first things I bought when I came home was one of those speakers that you pull around like luggage. And then the world shut down, and I couldn't go anywhere and speak about it. So I went on every single podcast. I was in podcasts in Australia and New Zealand. Nice. And, I had a piece that we wrote with a couple guys that were also formerly incarcerated. One was from Australia that got interpreted into Portuguese because they presented it in Brazil.
Nice.
I don't know nothing about no Portuguese, but I know about re-entry. So.
Fact. What was your preparation like inside, and what were you preparing for?
First 10 years was like pretty much anybody else. I wasn't prepared for anything. I did not think, 22 when I committed the crime, went in at 23, got 27 to 50 and 2 for the gun. Those are numbers that do not compute.
Yeah.
It's 1993. First out date is 22 years into the next century. So all
I might make it.
I might. I really had some, come to God moments early on. And I think one of the ones that kind of saved me and put me in a situation to be able to get to this point was in quarantine. I remember having all these questions. Am I going to survive this? And I remember going through all these things in my mind, and I remember having the question, am I going to have to kill somebody? And something really quickly stopped me and said, you ain't no killer. And I remember arguing with that voice at first, because I'm going into prison. What do you mean I ain't no killer? You saying I ain't about that life? But it actually saved me, because I was a lot of things, and I wasn't a punk, and I wasn't, there was a lot of those things that were not going to happen, but it set an edge for me that I'm not a killer. Let's not become one. Because I think a lot of times people, kind of get caught up in there and think they got to do things that they don't necessarily have to do. And then something, some higher power was telling me, you don't have to. And so that was kind of off the table. And then, 10 years or so into it, when I started getting into, when I first got to level 2 and I started looking at programming and stuff, I accidentally got involved in some things, and I liked it. And I realized I had a voice, and people listened to me. And the more that I actually lived what I said, the more people listened to me. So I started paying more attention, to what I said and what I believed. I didn't read books for 8 years in prison. Now, this is an interesting fact about Adam, because it set a lot of the tone, and the reason why I stopped reading is because I realized I didn't know who I was. And so I was regurgitating other people's ideas.
That's interesting.
So I was like, I got to stop reading. I got to figure out who I am before I can get back into this. And I think that's kind of where my authenticity comes from now. I got a strong understanding of who I am. So I can read, I can watch something, I can have a conversation all day long, and I can be influenced without just being indoctrinated, you know?
Oh, that's interesting you say it like that. What type of, when you were reading, what type of things did you read?
I don't remember the last time I read a fiction book. I'd read nonfiction. I find it was weird. I would read textbooks. I would read like sociology textbooks, and psychology textbooks, and self-help books. But once I came back to reading, it was easier for me to do that. I would read books and put them down, because as soon as I found something that I didn't agree with, I stopped reading them. Once I understood who I was, I could read through the discomfort. I didn't have to agree with everything in a 400-page book. So I read a little bit of everything. I loved philosophy. When I started going to school, I loved philosophy. I love deep thinking. I love questioning. I've found that life is not about the answers, it's about better questions. And so I think I was meant to be a philosopher, and instead I'm an executive director.
Okay. What type of things were you doing that kind of started to bring that understanding of what you were doing to light? I say as far as the things that got you in line to start being able to go after that, to start taking responsibility, to kind of control your own way to go.
Like a lot of people, I faked it till I made it a little bit. You know, like I'd try some things on, but I'd never really fully go with it. And I started realizing that, you know, to really be able to form an opinion about something, you really got to fully try it on. You know, I mean, if you're going to put a suit on, you can't just put the coat on and be like, this looks nasty. Well, you're wearing Bahama shorts with it. Of course it looks nasty. You got to see what the whole uniform looks like. You got to commit to the look. You can't wear purple pants.
Yeah, speaking from the man. Yeah, we're going to get to that later.
So I realized that the commitment was what was going to teach me what I needed to know, and I'd committed to the other side of the life. I mean, I was a stick-up kid from the age of 12. You know what I'm saying? I was committed to that life, and I realized I had to try something else. And it really started to take root when I was at Saginaw Correctional Facility. And I got involved in the NAACP. And I was the PR director for the NAACP at Saginaw. Now you can imagine at some of those events when I go up there to speak at them, people are looking at me like, bro.
Yeah, bald-headed white dude.
No, long-haired white dude at the time. Like long hair, like Fabio, like long hair. And people are looking at me thinking, you know what, and 70s porno mustache.
Oh my God.
But they're looking at me and they're probably thinking, man, what is this guy going to tell me? And then I spoke. And I started to talk about things like, I understand that things are different and I can't understand what it is to be black in America. But what I do know is at this point in time, they all look at us as blue and orange. So it gives me some kind of understanding. So I understand how color can be an issue. And it started to make me look at things and have conversations I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I really started to look at the world around me, and I started to realize that if I paid attention, if my ears were open, if I listened, and then spoke about the things that I learned, it would resonate. And that I had a way of putting things that people could often understand that they wouldn't otherwise, and I could speak to certain people that wouldn't necessarily have listened to somebody else otherwise. So I started to realize there was a responsibility in that. And I've never had a problem with taking the lead on things, but I know that there's a responsibility that, again, you have to commit. And so I went 10 toes down with this work 2003 when I stopped using all substances and decided that I was really going to try this on. And I haven't looked back since.
What was the support system? What did that look like?
It was mixed. I think everybody needs a person in some way, shape, or form. Everybody doesn't have it, or at least they're not aware of it. I was aware of mine. Mine was my grandmother. Didn't matter what I did, didn't matter how everybody else gave up on me. Grandma didn't care. Now, Grandma was a handful.
Grandma's the best.
Yeah. Grandma was like ornery, and you couldn't tell. If you didn't know she loved you, you'd swear you did something wrong, and she was pissed all the time. She never went nowhere, though. So there was something in me that like I knew I had let her down in many ways, and there was something that I wanted to make her proud. Sorry about that. I wanted to make her proud and couldn't, for whatever reason. And so that was another motivation. It was like I wanted to, you know, show her that she bet on the right horse. I had other supports. My mom and my family, I mean, I'd let them down a lot of times. And the last thing that I let them down for was, you know, the FBI and the IRS showed up at their house after I'd already been incarcerated for several years. Yeah, long story. We don't want to put that one on camera. But so they had kind of been like, I can't do this anymore. It's too painful. And so we didn't talk for a long time. I didn't talk to one of my sisters for 8 years. One of my sisters still doesn't talk to me. My mom and I didn't talk for 17 years. So my support system was kind of piecemealed after that in some ways. I met my wife 11 years before I came home. That's too long a story to get into here too. But, you know, we've been together for 15 plus years, you know, now, and that's my person.
What about those that were inside with you? What was that community, that circle like, if you had one?
No, I had plenty, but I rode to 16 different facilities and had 19 different rideouts.
Yeah.
I also joked that my property had been to 20 facilities because one time they sent it to Women's Huron Valley and I didn't get it for like 2.5 weeks.
They just dropped it off.
Right.
They call them back half an hour later. Hey, we don't have men at this facility.
Exactly.
All right, we'll be back next week to get it.
Yeah, we'll get it to them eventually. So you have a bunch of communities, and some people really kind of close off, don't let themselves get into as deeper relationships in there because you never know when somebody's going to ride out. You never know how that's going to affect the relationship as a whole because people promise you the world and don't do things. My deputy director is my best friend, and my deputy director didn't even fully believe me when I told him, dog, I need you out here. You know, I'm making a position for you. People say that all the time. And he didn't want me to pick him up from prison at first, and I wouldn't take no for an answer. Originally, I was going to have to pick him up all the way up in Baraga. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm coming to get you. Thankfully, they rode him down here, and I only had to pick him up from Ionia. But that first day, I wanted him to know that this was different and this was real, not only by picking him up, but by taking him to the places I had been talking about him.
Yeah.
So I took him home to meet my wife, who had been sending him things in there to remind him of what was going on. She had cookies for him, welcome home cookies, and a hug. Then I took him to Home and New Vision and showed him the people that I'd been talking to when I'd been working there. And they were like, oh, this is cute. And then I brought him down here to A Brighter Way where I just started, you know, a few months before that. And, you know, he met people who already knew about him. So there are people in there that I still miss. I don't have contact with them because you can't have contact with everybody. My heart's too big. And quite frankly, even people that you love and that love you will still use you at some times. And I've realized that in some situation because, you know, when you're struggling, when you're drowning, you're not trying to drown the lifeguard, but you will if it'll get your head above water. You know?
No, that's definitely facts. What, how soon before you were released did you start making moves externally from prison?
Before I was released? Oh, a long time. I wrote a program called the Involvement Project while I was in prison. It was 13 pages. I still had one of the 1993 inkjet word processor, which was,
That's
we
old as
know
hell.
technology went
Yeah, that's old
backwards.
as hell.
But it was sweet.
Yeah.
By
Was it
today.
the clear one?
No, it was well before the clear one. It was this was one that actually looked like a computer had done it. You could do pie charts and stuff
Okay.
on it. So I did this sweet proposal on how to revamp the entire classification system in prison, because you know as well as I do, almost everybody by the time they get to the parole board looks the same. They've all taken the same classes, they've been involved with the same things. My thing is the more involved you are and the longer you were involved with things, that should be able to show up. So I called it the Involvement Project. It got me investigated by the inspector, because what they wanted to know was, they didn't care about the proposal I put together. They wanted to know how I made the pie charts. So during that same week, Ken Ross had kind of become one of the worst joints in the state, violence-wise. And there were like 3 different stabbings on the yard. 17 people had got stabbed or something in a week. There was still a fresh patch on white snow up there. And I'm up there being questioned about pie charts in an involvement project. So I started doing those things probably, that would have been 13, 14 years before I came home. Because I knew practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And so I put a lot of the things in practice. I used to tell people, we're really short-sighted in prison. Everybody is thinking about what they're going to do to get out. I had the foresight to understand that if I started doing the work that I needed to do to stay out, it would naturally pull me out. So I was like more prepared than a lot of people, because I wasn't just trying to get to the door. I was trying to figure out all the things that were after the door.
Did you know who you were going to get involved with, or was there just like, I'm getting out and I'm just going to go this until, somebody shows up at the door with something that's compatible?
I knew some. I mean, CAPS had turned into Safe and Just, and so I'd followed their stuff while I was in the law library. I knew that Nation Outside was beginning. I'd started to hear about it, and I loved the concept, but they only had like 1 or 2 chapters at the time.
Now they got like 12 or 13.
Yeah. So I had some very small ideas. What I knew I was going to do was that I was just going to show up. I was going to show up at events. I used to tell guys in the classes that I'd run, everybody wants a job when they get home, but a job interview is a process, and then they may still say no to you. Volunteerism is something that you can pretty much get involved in anywhere. And I knew that if I showed up and volunteered, people were going to want me on their team. So I just kept showing up. I kept showing up, and I looked crazy. So, bald-headed white guy. When you're in prison, you have to wear the same clothes. They took our pockets when they took our belt loops.
Man. And they took the regular pants and gave us
toddler pants, because they've got elastic.
Everything's pull on.
Yeah,
slip on.
it's crazy. You feel like
Horrible.
you're wearing a diaper when you're.
You could almost, I would say probably early 2000s. You could walk around looking like you was in a press suit in your uniform.
Put them under the bed.
Yeah,
you could press.
Put them under the bed.
Yeah.
Straight flattened out. Put the mattress on there. Sleep on it for a couple of days. All that coming out crispy.
And then the rest of them just crazy. Everything crooked when you put it together. Like I felt like Homie the Clown.
Man, you can't get that. You can't get that stretch stuff to go smooth at all.
So when I came home, first pair of pants I bought were like tactical pants. They got all the pockets on them and stuff. And for the first year and a half, that was basically what I wore.
I think I remember you back when I first met you.
Always.
So many pockets.
Yeah. So I mean, I had one pair of pants that had pockets all the way down here. So now imagine this. Here I am, bald-headed white dude, about 50 years old, going into the hood in Jackson with those pants on, a clipboard in my hand, and knocking on doors canvassing. Who's going to open the door for me?
I love that.
You know what I'm saying? But I didn't care. I showed up at everything. me and Rick almost got jumped one day because they were like, they swore we were up to something. They were like, you ain't never been to the joint before, and if you were, you were with the Aryan Nation. I was like, man, there ain't no Aryan Nation in the Michigan Department of Correction. You know, I mean, there are people who play,
right? No.
But, so anyway, but it was funny because they went from ready to jump us to not letting us leave until we took a donation. I'm like, dog, we're not here in any position to be able to take a donation. And he's like, come on, man, don't disrespect me, dog. All right, man, I got you. So I just showed up. I just showed up to everything. I showed up as my full, authentic self. I showed up, being a person who genuinely loves and cares about people. And I think that's the biggest thing. And eventually that kind of resonated with people, and that's how this job found me, because I didn't even apply for this job. Mm-hmm. Showing up, had the right people see me, and when the job came open, they asked my supervisor, they said, do you think Adam's ready for this job? And my supervisor said, Adam was created for this job. Mm. So.
That's heavy. What, did you have like a small little group of guys that were kind of the same mindset as you, or at least on the same mission to do something?
Inside?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always found those people. Early on, I was one of the guys who would kind of, gravitate to people who were doing the right things, the old heads, and I'd learn from them. But it didn't take very long for me to kind of really take more of a leadership role in those situations, even when I was in a room full of old heads, because they had more experience than me, but I started to realize nobody had more vision than me, and nobody had a bigger heart in any of this than me. So I always kind of went in and took a lot of institutional knowledge from them and then turned it into something else. When I went to Carson City Level 1, they were about to close down the Carson City Resource Center, which was the self-help programs. Mm-hmm. There were 4 classes, and I think they had a total of 6 facilitators. And something had happened, they were about to close it down. I went in and sold myself to the classification director. I said, don't close it down, give me a shot, and she did. And when I left, the reason why I left is because the program was too successful. Mm-hmm. We were running 28 classes every 2-month cycle, and I had over 60 trained facilitators on the compound. Because
it's funny how that happens when somebody has a direction and it's got people who want to learn.
And what they didn't understand was self-help programs in and of themselves only do so much. If you let people facilitate them, I became part of the person that I became because I had a responsibility and people were watching me. Mm. And so when you're facilitating, now I hold a higher responsibility, and I have to say, if you're in there and you're on some nonsense, people ain't gonna pay no attention to you. And they're watching for you to be on some nonsense. So if they're watching you and you're doing what you say in the classes, they pay more attention because they're like, this works for him. Maybe it'll work for me. I taught an ethics class in there. I taught how this is a healing. I taught all different kinds of things. I would learn things because they'd say, we need one of these classes, and I didn't have anybody to teach it. So I'd learn it, and then I'd teach it.
I miss those classes. It was full of us.
Yes.
We taught it. We learned it. It was great.
There's a camaraderie that you can't fully find out here.
It is. I was talking to my sister. She's a Marine. Her husband's a Marine. And, I was telling her about just, there is something about, when I'm amongst my group of people where I may not even know them, but there's that link. And where it's like there's almost like an extra level of trust just because that link is there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like I don't necessarily want to make the comparison, but it is like that. Like you're in a place where like shit could happen at any moment.
Yeah.
Like I've been in several situations where like if I hadn't been watching my P's and Q's, like just the external stuff going on with other people, like stuff wouldn't have turned out the way it turned out.
Sure, some can be avoided and some is not as bad as it would have been. And there's a trauma bonding that goes on in there too. I mean, whether you go through the entirety of it or not, prison is designed to be traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not designed to be nice. It's not designed to be rehabilitative, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It can be, but
that's on your own initiative at the end of the day now.
And even if they do some things to help facilitate it, it is generally traumatizing. And I always use this example when I'm in a room full of people, especially when I'm in a room full of people that I know haven't been incarcerated. You know, I get them all to raise their hand. Who in the room has been strip searched? Who has been strip searched dozens of times? Who's been strip searched hundreds of times? And it's funny because you not only see the response on the people's faces who have, you see the tension go on with the people who haven't. It's traumatic to even just hear about it, to imagine it, but to actually go through it. You know, there's half a joke, but it's an uncomfortable joke when you think about, you know, there was an officer at Carson City, and I won't name names, I won't have to. Everybody will know exactly who it is, who volunteered for the strip searches on the visits.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a big dude, and it was a small room.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about some uncomfortable feelings when somebody's breathing heavy behind you and, you know, giving you instructions.
Who's enjoying it?
It certainly seemed to be. I know I wasn't.
Facts.
You know?
I was on gate pass, so I did that
Ugh.
every weekday, twice a day. I got strip searched, leaving and coming back to the facility.
I was MSI at
Yep.
one point in time, so I dealt with that.
Oh, damn, I forgot about that. I was just thinking about gate. No, I did that 2 years.
Yeah.
I went back and forth from the factory, strip searched. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Damn.
So there were a lot of people that were influential and make you look at things, you know, differently, including stuff like that. I mean, you kind of dissociate a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of is what it is. You go through what you go through, going out on visits. I know some people who would not go out on visits because of the strip search, you know, and it was like...
It's definitely not uncommon.
No. And you can't take my humanity from me, no matter how much you try and strip me of it. I would make it into a joke and make you uncomfortable. I had one guy at Cotton, you know how that, you know, they'll tell you, you know, to lift your testicles. Mm-hmm. And then this guy actually had the nerve to say, to the left. And then he said, to the right. And I said, is this the hokey pokey? You know, and he was a little bit upset about it, but nonetheless, it's kind of like, this is ridiculous, you know? But yeah, I mean, I don't know how we got here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're going to reel it back.
Please don't hear about that. You know what I'm saying?
We're going to reel this
don't
back.
Don't think about me doing the hokey pokey.
So, yeah, right? So, let's shift gears a little bit. You said you had met your current wife before you had got released. Want to talk a little bit about your home situation, your living situation. What type of living situation did you come out to, and how did that?
I came out to a peach, as they would say. She's amazing. I mean, well, I mean, I got to take you back to the beginnings. We met because she had a family member in there, and being the person that she was. After about a year, she wrote me about what an impact that I'd had on her and her entire family. Now, I knew I was having an impact on people that I was working with. I never thought about how it stretched beyond the fence. So the way she expressed it was like life-affirming and life-changing for me. And I wanted to provide the same thing because I wanted to write her back and tell her, you know, this was amazing, and I want you to know, keep that shit up. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Don't let anybody know don't let anyone tell you what you shouldn't do or who you shouldn't reach out to. And I just thought she was awesome. And then after a month, she decided to write me back, you know, because she thought I was pretty cool too, and she was right, you know. But really quickly, both of us just had this, like, I didn't know what was going to happen with her. I had 13 years is what I thought I had left to do at that point in time. And there was just, I knew she was the coolest person that I'd ever met. And I didn't care what way and shape or form that she was going to be in my life. I just wanted her in my life. So I just thought I'd made the coolest friend ever. And we just kept writing. And I mean, like, incessantly and like obsessively. She talks about how bad her apartment got because she would just come home from work, put everything down, start writing, stuff would pile up. And it just went from there. And we did things backwards from so many couples. So many couples will start out and they want to put all their best, this is me, I'm amazing, and wear your best clothes and put your best voice on and everything like that. And then all of a sudden it's kind of like, I'm gonna get you, sucker, where all of a sudden the leg comes off and the wig comes off, and this is who you really are. We took the leg, the wig, all that stuff off in the beginning and just shared and laid out all the worst things that we thought about ourselves, because it was like we were at a point in our lives where if this is gonna lead somewhere, I want you to know who I really am. And so we laid all that stuff out, and one day we realized there was nothing really bad to share anymore, and we just started sharing deeper things. You know, thoughts, hopes, dreams, beliefs about certain things. I shared all the programming I was doing in there. And, you know, we just bonded in such a way that I didn't marry her while I was in there because I didn't want to hold her hostage. I wanted to give her every opportunity to run. And I even gave her.
He said, "I want to give her every opportunity to run."
And I gave her about a year and a half after I got out to run too. And once she did, now she's stuck. There ain't no running. You can't outrun me. You know, I got papers on her. So we're good. Matter of fact, on our last anniversary, this tattoo we got together. She got her own version of it, but she drew this. It's a dancing A and K. So the A is standing there and the K is leaning back on the A, and then it's got our anniversary on there, which is 9/9 and an infinity symbol, and then I've got 5 diamonds on there because each one 3 diamonds on there. Each one represented 5 years, and it was also our 3rd wedding anniversary.
Nice.
So every 5 years I got to add a diamond.
Okay, you said all that nice fluffy stuff. What was it like moving in with somebody for
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. Not as weird as I would have thought in some ways. 27 years. 27 years sleeping on a bunk where nobody's supposed to touch you.
Yeah, right?
You know? And I talked about that for years before I came home because I didn't know. I wanted her to know that, like, if she came up and hugged me from behind while I was doing the dishes or something, I didn't know how I would respond to that. I didn't know if I would recoil. I didn't know, and I didn't want her to think it was about her.
Yeah.
But I thought things were going to take more time than they did. But I'd done so much work that when I came home, I knew I was home, and I knew I was safe, and I knew I wasn't going back to prison. That was all behind me. So the first night I slept on the couch. The second night I went and laid with her for a little bit, then slept on the couch. And the third night I climbed into bed, slept with her, and I haven't left since. It's one of my favorite places to be. We both get into bed at the end of the night, you know, giggling like little kids. Like, here we go again in our fort, you know? So it's amazing. But there were moments. There were moments where things were, you know, kind of odd. I still have moments where sometimes I'll wake up and there are thoughts on my mind that won't let me go back to sleep. And it doesn't have anything to do with where I'm at. It has to do with where I've been. You can't undo that. I will be 62 years old before I get to the point where I have half of my life in and half of my life out. That shit takes bites out of you.
No, I'm up on that. I'm in that realm right now. I'm on that halfway mark where I spent now the same amount of time out here that I was in prison.
That's deep when you really think about it too.
It is, man, because it's like, you know, you think about it, it's like 19 years. Like that's a lot. And
Means you're also getting old, man. I'm just saying. Can we cut that out?
I can't cut that out.
So you had a place to go.
Yes.
There wasn't it wasn't an issue for you coming home.
No.
Did you, at the same around the same time that you came home, was there others that you were released around the same time that you were you saw were having difficulties?
Well, remember one of the things that I did, the third job I had, because I got two jobs at the same time and then the world shut down. And so there was no more canvassing. I was canvassing. The governor said no more canvassing. And I was working at Holy Cross, a homeless shelter in Lansing, when everybody thought this virus was going to kill half of us. And my wife has got asthma, and my mother-in-law has COPD. So they wanted me to work more hours, and it was 12-hour shifts, but they were letting people out all day long and then bringing them back in. So I had a meeting with them. How do you guys feel about this? I can get more hours. And they were like, no, we would prefer that you quit and look for something else. Thankfully, a job that I just turned down was still open, and I was able to become a certified peer recovery coach. So even though I wasn't supposed to be associating with people who had been recently released, I was an asset for my employer, and they always had me working with somebody whenever possible that had been to jail or been to prison. So I saw a lot of people's circumstances. I already knew that they were different than mine, but I really got a strong taste of how different they are than mine. And I mean, to give you an idea of, I could not have come out to a better situation in a lot of ways. I had some people who cared about me. I had some people who enjoyed some privilege. And so it sounds really simplistic when I break it down like this. But I walked out the door, you know, where people talk about gate money and stuff like that. I walked out the door to cookie money. And to give you the story behind cookie money is my mother-in-law and my father-in-law in their own way. My mother-in-law had decided, I ended up having to do 2 years more than I was supposed to do. So the cookie money got 2 more years of being saved. But my mother-in-law had decided that she was gonna, every time she wanted to buy some cookies, she was gonna put the cookie money in a jar for Adam when Adam walked out the door.
I am so curious of this number.
Right. So when I walked out the door, it was almost 5 years, because she'd started it like 3 years before I was supposed to go home. Then the habitual hearing happened, and I ended up doing 2 more years. So we had about 5 years of cookie money. So I walked out the door with over $700 money in my pocket. Now, you know, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
When you got money in your pocket and you don't have to ask somebody for something. When you go to the store, you can pick up what it is that you want to get, but you have an actual number in your pocket, so you don't want it to get too low. Like, I paid to get my driver's license. I paid I paid for everything. I got to take my own way in a lot of this stuff, which was hugely important. But it was $700 and some, you know? So that was part of my support system. So I realized I had that when a lot of people didn't. And so when people say, be who you needed someone else to be for you, I really kind of took that, on. I've tried to, really be there for people and not handicap them by doing stuff for them, but doing stuff with them and being support when they don't have a lot of support, and giving them a couple dollars of my cookie money in some ways, when I can, even though it might not be the proper thing to do in some. I don't care what's proper. I care what works.
Yeah.
With
everything that you've done, it's obviously important to cultivate relationships with people, not only on the inside, but on the outside. Do you think that is a crucial piece of the infrastructure to be able to make it out here?
I don't believe anything happens but through relationship. Our tagline is reentry through relationship for a reason. So I think any bridge...
And that's a brighter way.
That's a brighter way, but that's also very much me, because I believe everything happens through relationship. So that doesn't mean that you go through life kissing everybody's butt, because every butt is not worth kissing. but we've all seen one that is. You know? So we need to figure those things out along the way. I think what happens, like we were talking about the phone, you know, people owning the phone and then just cussing people out and everything. I've also seen people that are on that phone trying to make their family afraid so that they will send money to help. You know, if you ask my wife how much of my day-to-day life in prison she heard outside of the programs that I was a part of, she heard almost none of it. And if she did, she heard some of it after the fact when there was nothing to worry about, you know, anymore. Because I think, I've always said this, when we're in prison, we have a tendency to look at the fact that we are in prison. But what makes a prison? A fence, right? And it keeps us from things that we love and that we want. Our family and friends are also in prison. The only difference is their yard is bigger. The fence still keeps us from them. So I think the importance of anytime you have relationships that require some tending, that you do so. And sometimes you make sacrifices for the people you love, and you don't get so upset. I got upset like anybody else. My whole thing is don't tell me you're going to do something and then don't do it. The easiest way to do that is don't tell me you're going to do something. Surprise me. You know, I would rather you provide and under promise. Don't tell me anything. But still, it's not my job to dictate, you know, how you deal with me too. So I think, you know, relationships are important, whether they're inside a prison, outside a prison, or a combination of the two. They require work, and any of them that are worth having are going to require work. Now my wife would deny that because she says it's the easiest relationship she's ever been in, but I don't know.
So, was there anything that was missing that you could have, not necessarily you yourself, but if it had been present, could have made things easier? Whether it was some type of mental health resource or shit, whatever you felt like was missing.
I mean, it certainly could have, and if I was not me, there was a lot of cracks to fall through. My parole agent, I provided far more resources to him over the course of my 2 years on parole than he ever provided to me, and he will acknowledge that.
How did you do that though?
That's just kind of how I'm wired. It was how I was doing it in there. I was finding resources. I was finding us volunteers. I was finding books or discounts. You know, that's just kind of what I did. Life became a treasure hunt instead of something to be survived. I was always looking for something.
Oh, that is a different perspective.
It is a different perspective, and it really changed the way that I approached my whole incarceration. It wasn't something to be survived. It was something for me to come out better. You know, you can either serve time, which we talk about all the time, or figure out how to make time serve you, and that's what I did. So there's a lot of things that could have been, you know, better. My wife and I talk about when I first came home. The day I came home, you know, you got to report to your parole agent from the beginning. I've got a bank robbery, so I'm statutorily required to do 2 years. I've got a substance use history, so I got to pee in the cup. That's funny too. The first job that I got was the guy who did the peeing in the cup job also worked at Holy Cross, which was interesting nonetheless. But, you know, all of those things were going on, and I didn't meet my actual parole agent. I met somebody who was filling in for him that day, so I can't tell how it would have been different had I had my PO. But they didn't give me anything. They didn't give me any resources. They didn't give me a folder. They didn't give me anything. They told me when my next time to report was going to be, how often I had to do the piss test, you know, things like that. And I wasn't really worried about it because that next day, like, I wasn't worried about anything.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask. You know, was there ever any like worry, you know, going in and not really knowing that you weren't really going to be counting on them for anything?
Not me. I was 49 years old, and I'd already made up my mind. I was 19 and 49 all at the same time because I was a little kid and I was a grown-ass man.
Yep.
And nowhere did that show itself more than the day after I got out, where I wasn't playing. It's like, I got to go get my ID. I got to start my driver's license process. So we're sitting in the Secretary of State for 4 hours.
Oh man, I remember the DHHS was worse.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Nobody likes Secretary of State. Everybody in there is pissed off. And I look like I'm crazier than a gang of winos because I'm sitting in there with a big old grin 4 hours later. And after 4 hours, I was like,
You still got the smile.
I was like, Katie, why don't you go get us some Arby's? There's an Arby's right up the road. So everybody's pissed off in here. Here I am sitting there eating curly fries, you know, and a beef and cheddar. With a big old grin on my face. So my approach, I could always juxtaposition the fact that none of this is taking place in prison. Mm-hmm. So whatever I'm dealing with, I'm out here, and the possibilities. The one of the biggest things that's missing in prison is possibilities, and possibilities were endless out here.
Mm-hmm. Was there a mentor or organization that was in your sights or part of your influence?
I reached out to Monica Janner because I knew that she was doing good work, and I was from Lansing.
And what does she do?
Her organization's called Arrow. She does what doesn't Monica do.
Okay.
Monica's been a beast since she was in prison, filing lawsuits against the Department of Corrections. And she sits on the board of Nation Outside. She has her own organization, Arrow. She's been on various governors' committees having to do with CJA reform and stuff like that. And so I reached out to her because they were talking about starting a Nation Outside chapter. Tony Gant, shortly after I'd been out for a while, I met him because he was doing Jackson Nation Outside, and then I started working in Jackson. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of specifics, again, partially because by the time I was really prepared to start doing the work, the world had shut down.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't able to I was meeting people who were doing this work globally. I wasn't meeting a whole lot of people who were doing this work locally because so many things had shut down. But I had to do the work. Because what I was doing inside, that's what got me through. That's who I'd become. I was a productive person. I learned stuff that I learned technology-wise and stuff because of COVID. So the whole world is shut down and everybody's freaking out and they're talking about being locked down and everything else. And I just got done being locked down for 27 years. I'm like, this ain't nothing. I told my wife one day, I said, you are the best bunkie I've ever had. I got a refrigerator.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I'm good. I get to go out and play the hero every day. Let me go get the toilet paper and stuff like that. So I'm going out into the world. So at one point in time, I had a realization that while the whole world was at a disadvantage because they didn't know how to deal with this, I was on an even playing field or better because I knew how to deal with all this. And so I'm like, whatever y'all want to throw at me. And I started interviewing for jobs. I didn't have no business interviewing. I got the job for Jackson Area Recovery Community Coordinator. I hadn't been out of prison for 9 months. I'm in a leadership role in an organization. I ended up in front of the CEO and she said, do you know you're a miracle? Changed my life. Because I was like, somebody saw me. Somebody valued, what I'd done and what I'd overcome. Because I'm not proud of what I've done to get to prison. But you're damn straight I'm proud of everything that I've overcome. Because there's some people out here who aren't as far along as me who didn't have to overcome nothing.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of those things that just kind of naturally happened. But I didn't have a lot of specific mentors. Some of the mentors ended up in my life by happenstance, by serendipity. My supervisor at Home and New Vision, shortly after I started there, he started the position because the previous person had gone on something else. And I'd already made it known that I wanted that job. I just didn't want it yet. And so he came in on day one and he said, I heard you want my job.
Just like that?
Yep. And I said, absolutely do. Don't want it yet. But and so we had a really good relationship. It's like, I'm here to learn from you. Eventually you're not going to be here and I do want your job, but I don't want it now.
Yeah.
And we actually had one person in the house that really kind of hit him one time too, because she said, "You're not my boss, Adam's my boss." But that's just because I was easier to work for.
What advice would you give someone coming out from prison and about to start their own path?
Well,
or even before?
I was going to say, if I could get to them before, I would tell them, don't let that time that you have be wasted. Had I not have done all the work that I did before I came home, like people are like, how have you accomplished so much in such a short period of time? And basically, I want to do what my shirt that I told you does and flip her. But what do you mean in such a short time? I've been doing this for 25 years.
No, it's funny you say that, because that I remember that same thought would occur to me when, you know, I was getting ready to go up for parole, and I would get asked, "So you ready to go out and start your new life?" And it's just like, I remember thinking one day, I was like, well, what the fuck have I been doing?
Right.
Like, I know what I've been doing, and it ain't been doing nothing. Right?
No.
And it's definitely a different perspective when you think about, like, none of the time that you did is irrelevant.
No.
None of it.
No, we talk about in there, we talk about the real world. Is this a cartoon? I mean, it was about as real as it gets in some ways. It was real, and if I could do those things under those difficult circumstances, then you know, the world was my oyster for real. You know, so all of those habits that you create in there will transfer with you. A lot of times, what I would tell somebody who's coming home right now, let me say that I don't get to talk to them in advance. Don't abandon the things that got you out the door. So a lot of people find religion in there. Mm-hmm. A lot of people take their physical health very seriously and work out on a regular basis. A lot of people take self-help classes and stuff out there. And then they walk out here in the real world, slaps them in the face, and they think that they got to earn this amount of money, and they got to do it at this pace, and that their job is going to fix everything. And they abandon all of the things that kept them sane, kept them focused.
I'm definitely guilty of that.
Most are. I mean, damn, I'm fat, dog. I put on 40 pounds. So, and I used to work out in there on a regular basis. It's hard to find the time to do those things. But what I do now is I make sure that I get out and I walk. I have to take time for those things. And I wish I would have taken more time for them, you know, to begin with. I don't like being fat.
No, I sit here
like
sometimes
eating.
and think about, like, damn, because we all know the truth of our efforts. And so, you know, I can't help but sit here and think sometimes, like, damn, like, I only really went hard on, like, prepping to come home, like, with the intention of, like, getting my coming home thing to a year and a half. And I just can't help but think, like, if I had been doing that from the time I got in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. When we had the black and white TVs and stuff in prison, people used to think I was crazy. I'd be like, you know, you gonna give somebody your TV when you go? No, I ain't giving nobody my TV. I'm taking it with me. They're like, you're gonna take a black and white TV home? You're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna take a black and white TV home, because until I get off parole, I'm still doing a bit. And I wanted to remind myself that. So for a half hour every day, my plan is I was gonna go put my earbuds in, watch myself a program in black and white, and remind myself. Now my black and white TV blew up before the end, and I had a bubble back when I ended up leaving. But nonetheless, I wasn't taking that big old KTV bubble back home. I did give that to somebody. But the point was still true, and it had actually stuck in my mind, because I never forgot that I was still doing time until I got off there. So there was a lot of times people run through that door and it's like the finish line. They break the tape. Mm. And then they let down and they stop running. It was like I started running faster. I was like, that was the warm up. That was just to get the sweat going. Now I'm actually in the race.
How did you keep yourself in check?
One, I'd created good habits before I came home. I used to tell guys all the time, you know, because people would get mad about being in prison and being told what to do. And I said, you know what? Those who self-discipline don't have to be disciplined. Nobody else has to do it for you.
I like that.
Yeah. So when I came through, There's a picture that my wife took of me when I'm sitting out we were on a 3rd floor apartment at the time. And when you first come home, you're so used to seeing everything through a fence, and your eyes will do weird things with you, and you don't always see straight through the fence. So I'm sitting out on our 3rd floor balcony. I've been home for probably 6 months. It's probably June, so it's summertime. So I got shorts on, I got flip-flops on, I got ice water in my hand, and I'm just looking out on the expanse. And my wife snaps a picture. I said, "What are you going to do with that?" She said, "I'm going to send it in to JP and show him what the free Adam looks like." And so she sends it in, and then the next day, JP writes back and says, "Adam don't look no different. He must have been free before he left."
That is a very, very interesting perspective to paint that like that. Because I told Marjani just recently too. It's funny how I am beginning to take the position that we had it right inside. Everything that we were doing to get through the day, to process things and to build our relationships is, it's almost funny. I would prefer to be in a group of people where I know if somebody calls somebody a bitch, that I would expect that person to be smacked.
Right.
Like right there. Like
rules are clear.
Rules are clear.
Rules are not fully clear out here sometimes.
And it's that's what I notice when I'm amongst our people.
Sure.
I hate to say it like that, but you can feel that vibe.
Sure. What's understood?
If there's something on the floor, there's going to be,
yeah, yeah, and there's a thing about that. There's a certainty to that. There's an immediacy to things like that. There's a lot of things out here. There's ambiguity out here in the world.
How hard was that how hard was that stuff to deal with?
Related to it, one of the most difficult things for me to deal with when I came home was I thought everybody had their shit together more than they do out here.
Yeah,
and
right.
I've been so disappointed with how unprofessional and how people that have been doing this for a lot longer than me should be a lot better at this than they are. And it's like you said, I think we had some things right. I think we'd figured some things out. And if we'd have just followed the staff in there, we'd be as jacked up as the rest of them out here. Because we knew something. We learned stuff about ourselves.
Definitely.
I learned that being busy was not enough. A lot of people in prison spend a lot of time trying to stay busy. I don't like busy. I like productive.
No, it's definitely a difference.
Yeah. And so I'm still productive out here. Where I'm having to learn balance is now that I have the whole world available to me, I got to realize I can't do it all. I could do everything that was available to me in prison because I would make stuff available. And I mean, there's an analogy that one time when I was up in Kenross, we were actually, me and Tequila, we played basketball. We played a basketball game, ran over, played a softball game, finished the softball game up, and played another set and a half of volleyball before yard was over with. I could do all the things. Mm-hmm. And I was able to do that the same thing mentally. I was able to do so much. But out here, it's endless. The possibilities are endless. And so I have to pace myself, and I have to be aware of the people who are closest to me. Like, I have a tendency to do too much and push myself too hard. And like, I cheat my wife. My wife gives more to this movement than most people know. Because she shares me with the world.
I would love to delve into that, but I feel like that's a whole other conversation.
That's true.
Because that's real, especially with everything that, not only is on your plate, but what you knew was going to be on your plate and what you got plans for in the future. So that definitely is something that I would like to talk to you about another time.
She does so with a huge amount of faith too, because one of the things that she said before I came home is she, you know, I mean, because she had concerns. I've been gone for 27 years and I'm a dude, you know, and she's like, you don't understand it. The women out here are gonna love you. And I said, I do understand it, but I said, I know I love you. And so having that time away, instead of just being like I was going to come out and chase everything, I knew that I had caught the one. And this bird in the hand was worth any multiples in the bush. So I'm not, I mean, and she knows it, but there are times that I know that she still wonders, am I crazy? You know, to kind of let him go out into these spaces. I mean, I'm staying here at work tonight, and she trusts me. You know, she has every reason to, but it also makes sense why there are times where she has, you know, concerns.
It's facts.
Because I know some that would sop me up like with a biscuit if they had a chance.
They ain't swaying back and forth.
No, you can keep that
spot
in there.
me up if they give it a chance.
That's right.
So with all of this,
ain't all of them that say that you are the only handsome.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Adam.
Yeah, I'm not the only handsome Adam. So during this time, you know, you getting out, have you faced any sort of negativity or discrimination considering your background?
I mean, you face it pretty regularly, and when you're in this space, like when I first started this job down here, there were definitely some challenges with some of the established players in the reentry field, especially people who've been in this for a long time. I mean, think about people who've been in the MDOC or probation or parole for 2 decades or more. They went through the zero tolerance era.
Yeah.
And when we had...
Now they're told to give chances.
And 70% recidivism.
Yeah.
So they're all just waiting for us to screw up in some ways, and they all think that this mentoring thing and this navigation thing is just a recruitment tool to be able to get people to do nonsense.
Which is funny.
It is. And it's like, I'm really going to do this wide up and open for
I'm recruiting to break the law.
Right. Or I want to go back into prison so that I can do some dirt in there. I don't ever want to. I want to go back into prison 6-8 hours at a time at the most. They do, but the mentality is getting away from that. But for a while, that was the way they looked at it. On a personal level, I mean, I was 30 for 30 for my first job interviews, and every single one of them rescinded the offer. Because I wrote a really good resume, because I didn't just sit on my butt while I was in prison. I wrote a functional resume that said what I did. It didn't matter if I was a programs clerk or not. What I was a programs coordinator. And I put all the things that I did, including creating those 28 classes and things like that. So my resume was tight. I interview well. And so I went into all these places. I went to one place, I can't remember, it was St. Vincent's or something like that. And it was kind of a juvenile facility, but not a juvenile correctional facility. It was kind of like in between that and foster care. They swabbed my cheek, the whole 9, and took me around to meet the kids. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be in here working with these kids. I'm introducing myself, telling them who I was, blah, 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 asking them about themselves. And then the next day, they were like, we're sorry. No. We thought the MDOC, we thought you worked for the MDOC. I did work for the MDOC. I just happened to live there too. But that was an example. I was 30 for 30. I always say that I'm so glad Blarney Castle Petroleum, which is a Shell gas station company, didn't hire me, because I would be the best regional manager they ever had. Because I would. That's how I apply myself and stuff. They did me a favor. But
thanks for not hiring me at the gas station.
Yeah. You couldn't charge me. You couldn't trust me with $50. You know, now I have access to hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know? So it's I mean, I had those things. We also got turned down for an apartment. We've stayed where we're at just because it's easier that way. It's cheap.
Inconvenient.
We don't need to go anywhere. But we were trying to move above my mother-in-law because the place was open. She was getting older. It was going to be nice for Katie to just be able to come down and take care of her when she needed to. Katie had already been approved welcome. All we need is Adam to do his paperwork. We already told about us. But they're like, all we need is Adam to fill out his paperwork a half hour later. No. Under no uncertain terms, no. What if we paid 6 months in advance? No. And it was like...
You can't have a why.
No, and that was 28 years ago when I caught that case. You know? So, I mean, those things happen. And I mean, there have been other things that happen, but my focus isn't on those things as much. So I don't, you know, it's not confirmation bias. I'm not looking for these things. They happen. People look at me certain ways, but other people look at me, and this is the thing that I battle against now, which is on the opposite end of this. Sometimes the work that gets done in this space, people have a tendency to attribute to exceptionalism. Oh yeah, you're doing really good, but like I'm somehow exceptional. No, there are a lot of Adams in there. No pun intended.
No, yeah.
But we just don't really invest in them, and we don't pull that out. There's nothing about this process that is aspirational. When you come home, it's all about avoidance of trouble instead of aspiring to be anything. And a lot of times when you do aspire to be things, then you get beat down.
What was the hardest, speaking of beatdowns, what was the hardest lesson that you learned since setting on this path that you're on now? Not just release, but knowing where you're at, how you got here, and where you plan to be going with the things that are currently in process with this new property that is, you know, under a Brighter Ways resources.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to say tutelage. That's the word that kept coming to me.
I know, that word came to me too, and I was like, no, that's not. I don't know. I approach difficulties different than a lot of people do. So I don't look at them in a negative light or a negative context. I've described it to Q a lot, that the world is full of dumbbells. Everyone you run into is a dumbbell. Some just weigh more than others. And some of them you can pick up, some of them you're meant to put down. So that's the way I approach a lot of these difficulties. And you know, in prison, I always say this, we figured out how to fix TVs with a pair of fingernail clippers.
Yeah.
So don't tell me there's a problem that we can't fix when I got all these tools in my toolbox.
With fingernail clippers, guys.
Yeah.
Fingernail clippers.
With fingernail clippers, literally. And not the ones that have a file on it.
Yeah.
Because you can do a lot of things with the file. I'm talking about the big, clunky parts. And so, to me, I approach everything as, you got a lot of people who think they're problem solvers when all they are is problem identifiers. Here's the problem. Okay, Captain Obvious. We know there's a problem. What are we going to do with it? My approach is always this. My approach is always, I come with solutions because I know there's always going to be a problem. So then when I come across a problem, I've already come up with some kind of a solution. And the thing that makes my formula work as well as it does, and why I think it's been, you know, kind of really successful in a Brighter Way, is because it's never program oriented. It's always people oriented. Because I studied psychology, and that's the degree I got because I wanted to know about people. Did I want to do business? Of course I wanted to do business, but people were going to be involved in business. You know, did I want to work in reentry? Of course I did, but people were going to be involved in reentry. And I think that's one of the differences between a lot of people who were formerly incarcerated working in this space as opposed to people who had a criminology degree, because they were looking at the crime, we're looking at the people. And I think that's huge. Not that other people can't do it, but people aren't they're not people oriented. They're problem oriented, they're program oriented, and solution oriented, and all those things, and they forget people are there on the other end of this all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Off the top of your head, if you were to give 3 references for resources to somebody coming out that would cover 3 different areas, what would you would suggest?
Well, shameless plug, I would, A Brighter Way would be one of them. Because even if you're not coming to our region, we've got relationships in other areas. And like when we go in through Reentry United, we don't care where you're going to. If you give us your information, we'll reach into you and give you resources in your area.
So basically saying, like, even if someone were to locate a resource and it doesn't specifically identify something that they particularly need, they should still reach out just on the off chance that they may know who that you need to be connected with.
And one of the things that worked fairly well for me while I was in, I mean, you get 10% success rate in what you reach out for. I spent a lot of postage and didn't get a lot of.
I got those numbers too, yeah.
But one of the things that I think kept my numbers fairly decent is that I always told them, I'm not reaching out for a handout, I'm reaching out extending a handout. So when you're looking for resources, the best way to find them is to be a resource. Everybody's got something to offer.
Yeah.
Everybody has relationships. And so if you can kind of make sure that the other person knows this is a reciprocal relationship. One of the reasons why I want you to see the Lansing office, and one of the things we've really been working hard in the Washtenaw office here is a lot of times this reentry work looks like charity. You can cut this out or not, but fuck that. This is not a charity case. You don't need charity. You deserve good shit. Now you have to earn it. It's not all going to be given to you. But I mean, a lot of times in this space, things they're charitable, they're given, and they don't, like, furniture doesn't match.
Yeah.
And simple things like that, it looks like an afterthought. It was like what was most important was just to give you a place to sit, not how it looked. I'm very conscious about the things that I do because you deserve nice shit. So I think that's a huge thing for us to be able to work with people is not to make them feel like a charity case. I don't help anyone. I assist. There's a slight difference.
Yeah.
Because you can help somebody who's not doing anything. You can't assist somebody who's not doing anything.
No, that's what I say to people when they talk about, getting help from, especially new people coming out. It's all these organizations, and you'll even find personal individuals that'll give you a helping hand and give you a leg up. But, the only way that you're going to be consistent with those relationships if they see you putting in effort too. They'll give you the hand because, you're just in that position. But if you don't do nothing with it, it's going to be a one-time or two-time thing. And then at the end of the day, you're going to be left talking shit about the organization because they didn't do shit for you when it was actually you who didn't do nothing for yourself.
We had one volunteer who came into Ken Ross who actually got in trouble because he actually started to look at us as human beings and dared to treat us as such, who was honest enough that at one point in time he said, I come in here for selfish reasons. Most of the volunteers come in there because they've got this, they want to feel better about themselves. I mean, let's be honest. I'm taking care of the poor and downtrodden, the prisoner. And he came in there because it was, like he said, for selfish reasons, because we gave him so much. We made him look at things different. We gave him perspective. He actually opened himself up to the possibility of reversing the paradigm. And when he did, he got more out of it than he ever could have if he would just stayed in for selfish reasons. And I think a lot of times that's the same thing with this work. Sometimes people get caught up because it's like, look at me. I will speak in any forum, but it's not about look at me. It is about listen to me because I'm one of many. I'm the voice for a lot of people. I say it differently. I speak in metaphors and stuff on a regular basis, but I'm saying what a bunch of people feel. And also sometimes I say it unapologetically, and sometimes I say it with a skin complexion and things like that it can be received in a different way. I joke with Q on a regular basis. I said, dog, you don't need to take care of that. I'll take care of this one. You take this one. They can't call me the angry black male. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They can't. So I'm gonna take on that role. Let me go ahead and go in there and be the more militant one in a situation. And then on other ones, I need to be the one that is a little bit more palatable. You know, I have to go in with camouflage. One of the first things I bought was my speaker. The second paycheck, one of the first things that I bought was suits, because if you're hunting in the woods, you want to look like a tree. I wanted to look like a legislator. That was my camouflage, you know. So all of these things are kind of, you know, they're a part of my philosophy. They're a part of the way that I show up. They're a part of the things that I knew I had right while I was in there, and I've adjusted them, you know, out here.
So you definitely need a plan. That's what I'm hearing.
You need several plans.
Several
if you
plans.
have one plan, you failed already. If I can tell anybody, if you got one plan, you failed already. Because if I got a plan A, B, C, and D, I don't care if all of them go wrong, the combination of them is automatically giving me another one. You know, and I'm that much closer to it. Plans are not so that they all work. Plans are so you can use pivoting as a last resort. Most of us are really good at pivoting and adjusting, and that is our plan. Well, I'll just adjust when I get there.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that all the time.
You pivot that much, at my age, your hips start to go out on you and stuff. You need to use that pivot for a very specific move.
So that's that ace in the hole.
That's right.